I had been in outpatient orthopedics for about 15 years. And was just thinking there's got to be more to it than this. With the insurance reimbursement rates were decreasing, so we had to see more and more patients to, still have the same sort of revenue coming in. And then the documentation kept going up and up. And then in our area, there's EpiCore, which had to be, is it authorized? So now we're fighting with the insurance companies for treatment that the patient needs, that the doctor has written a referral for, a prescription for, but then the insurance companies deemed it not medically necessary. Right. And that just gets to be a bit frustrating because now you're going to bat for your patient because you know they need it.
This is Secrets for Success.
Welcome to the Secrets for Success podcast. I'm your host, Greg Todd. Thank you, as always, for joining me. I have a special guest from really far. Really far. She's the furthest student from Clearwater, Florida, that is here right now, at least with the group that we have. Natalie Milligan, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
Okay, first of all, before we start, tell me how long is your flight to get to here? And why don't you tell the people exactly where it is that you live?
Okay, so I live up in Birch Bay, Washington, which is right on the U.S.-Canadian border in Blaine. We have 2 or 3 border crossings in our town. So we're right on, literally on the border. And so my flight, I started in Bellingham, which is our little regional airport. And I got on the flight. I boarded at 4:45 in the morning. So I had to get up at like 3 to get to the airport by 4. And then it's an hour down to Seattle by plane. And then there was a couple hour layover. And then I boarded the flight to Tampa out of SeaTac. And then that flight's about 5.5 hours. So then I landed in Tampa about 6 o'clock at night. So it takes me all day to get out here.
All day to get out. Well,
yeah. And all day to get back too. So I leave tomorrow morning. So I get up at 4 and my flight's at 6. Mm-hmm. And then I backtrack.
Oh, well, thank you so much for your dedication. Thank you. I hope I made it worth your while. For you to come here.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome. Well, tell the people a little bit about your practice and, how long you've been a therapist and all that other stuff.
Yeah. So I own 7 Elements Physical Therapy and Wellness Spa in Birch Bay. We started the physical therapy side of things in 2021, and then we opened the spa a year later in 2022. Mm-hmm. We're a full-service day spa. And the focus is on just health and wellness. So I, as a physical therapist, I do body work. I specialize in manual therapy. And I also do myofascial release. And I'm a Watsu therapist. So I have a Watsu pool room and I do Watsu's a form of hydrotherapy. Okay. So I float people there as well. And we have 2 massage therapists, an esthetician, and a nail technician. So awesome. So it really is beyond just physical therapy. It's kind of trying to take care of people and try and encourage people to take care of themselves. Yeah,
that's awesome. How long you've had a practice now?
I went to school in Australia. Okay. I graduated in 2003 and then came back to the States in 2004. Okay. So I've been a therapist, quite a while now.
Okay. Talk about the highs and lows of being a practice owner.
Highs and lows. Wow. The high is definitely just creating something, having a vision in your head. The Spa and Wellness Center was something that I had in the back of my head and I'd been kicking around since I became a Watsu practitioner. Up in the Pacific Northwest, it's really hard to have a pool that's heated to 96 degrees to do therapy year round. And so we knew it needed to be indoors, but to do an in-ground pool with a building was just cost prohibitive. So we were looking, how can we do that? So we found this space that's right on the water that has a concrete floor. We were able to put in an above ground. It's like a giant wine barrel. It's a giant hot tub. It's 12 feet across and 5 feet high. The water's 4.5 feet deep and it's heated to 96 degrees. So then we can work with people throughout the year with the hydrotherapy, with the Watsu. So I'm sorry, I forgot your other question.
No, just like, how did you decide that you were going to go in this direction and create your practice?
So I had been in outpatient orthopedics for about 15 years. and was just thinking there's got to be more to it than this. With the insurance reimbursement rates were decreasing, so we had to see more and more patients to, still have the same sort of revenue coming in. And then the documentation kept going up and up. And then in our area, there's EpiCore, which had to be, is it authorized? So now we're fighting with the insurance companies for treatment that the patient needs, that the doctor has written a referral for, a prescription for, but then the insurance companies deemed it not medically necessary.
Right.
And that just gets to be a bit frustrating because now you're going to bat for your patient because you know they need it.
Right.
And particularly they're like, well, why are you treating, their biggest thing with me is like, well, why are you treating their pelvis when they have knee pain? And it's like, if the pelvis is rotated, then it's going to put tension on the spine. And we know that L3-4 can refer pain into the knee. So, you have to look at the person from a holistic point of view and treat the whole person and just not the place that hurts, because then you're never going to get ahead because that might not even be what's causing the pain initially.
Right.
So,
and insurance doesn't want to do that.
and they don't want to do that.
Yeah.
They want you to get better in X amount of, like in 4 treatment visits, you should be better.
Yeah.
And, not everybody fits into this cookie cutter mold.
I think a lot of us, now I'm thinking about it, at least I know for myself, and I feel like maybe you're in the same, boat. When I opened up my clinic in 2005, I wanted clinical freedom.
Yeah.
That's what I wanted.
Mm-hmm.
I was sick and tired of not being able to do physical therapy
Right.
the way that I felt like it needed to be done.
Right.
It ticked me off.
Right.
And I had to, I was linked to 6 visits, 4 visits, whatever this thing authorized, and it was annoying.
And then having to constantly apply for more visits,
Right.
It's just like, well, we have to see if that's authorized.
Right.
And then there's this downtime while you're waiting for authorization, and then they're back to square one again. And
Right.
so it was just,
It starts to beat you up.
it really
It starts to beat you up, and
because there's a better way.
yeah, I think freedom is a very is a very broad word. There's different types of freedom. There's clinical freedom, there's time freedom, and there's financial freedom. And I think a lot of times I talk about financial freedom, but really most of us start by just wanting to actually use the skill sets that we have and we feel so handcuffed
Right.
with
Absolutely.
being able to use those skill sets in the traditional model,
Right.
where you're basically like, they don't get it. Or maybe they don't want to get it. I don't know. But
right.
but
and
yeah.
then the time codes too. Like
Yeah.
you can only see them for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
And so it just, you're asked about, the highs and lows of owning your own practice. And
Yeah.
that's definitely, I can spend as much time as I want to with that
Right.
person.
Right. Yeah.
And so, and because it's I'm the same person every time they come into our clinic, it's the same person. They're not retelling their story. They feel heard. A lot of times they're like, well, why didn't my doctor tell me this? Because you have the time to take
Yeah.
to explain to them like what's going on. You can show them, like this is what's happening to your body. This is why you're feeling the pain. Because they think they're crazy a lot of times because they're like, well, I've got pain over here and then it moves over here and then now it's down there and it keeps moving around and people think I'm crazy. And it's like, well, no, there's a reason for it. And here, let me show you how. And this is what's going on in your body. And then they feel heard and they're like, oh, okay, so I'm not losing my mind.
And sometimes you can't feel heard if you just don't have the time to be able to hear
Exactly.
it. Right.
Yeah.
That's so true. All right. So now that you've been a practice owner for, quite a few years, share with us some lessons that you've learned. Things that you would share with someone that's just starting, or maybe they've even been at it for a while, but you know what? They're trying to go through things without having the pain that me and you have had.
Oh, wow.
So what would you
that's-
tell? Yeah.
I would say just be patient.
Yeah.
And be kind to yourself. You want it to happen right away. And it is a process. There's a learning process to it. And there's also an implementation process.
Right.
Because in PT school, they don't teach us any sort of business, right? It's just how to treat the patient and bill for it.
Right.
And so you have to learn not only what to do, but how to do it, and then go ahead and do it.
Right.
And so it's not a quick process,
Mm-hmm.
and there's definitely some growing pains in there. I am not that tech savvy, so that has been one of the hardest things for me to learn, and it's constantly changing.
Right.
And my son is a senior in high school, and his generation just seems so adaptable. They're constantly like, oh, last week it was this way and this week it's this new way. And they're just like, okay, I'm not that way. I learned it a certain way and it took me forever to learn that. And then so when it modifies or Windows changes where the windows are, it's like, what are you doing? So that to me has been pretty hard. And also just putting yourself out there. Like, I know I'm a good physical therapist. I know I get excellent results, but it's like, that whole networking and getting out there and introducing yourself to people and saying, hey, this is what I do. Because I didn't buy a practice. I started it from scratch.
Right.
So it's getting into brand awareness and getting people know that we're there.
Right.
And what we do.
Right.
And so it's constantly letting people know your skill set. And that's a little uncomfortable for me, putting myself in front of people I've never met before and go, hey, this is me and this is what I do. But the more often you do it, they're like, oh, we've been looking for someone like you. Right. And it's just, they're like, oh, and the more you do it, the easier it gets.
Yeah. I was just talking to Joanna. She's another one of our Platinum Mastermind students. And we were talking about the lady that hosted the show that she was on. Yeah. And I said, why do you think she had the success that she had? And she said, sometimes your preparation meets timing, and I totally agree with that. You put yourself out there, you're learning these new skills. Right. A lot of them, you're learning, whether it's through my program or you're building these new skill sets, which you've done a wonderful job with. We are so proud of you. But the reality is that you don't know when that opportunity is going to come. You don't know the person that you're going to talk to that is going to be the person that's going to double your practice.
Right.
You don't know that moment, but you have to be ready for that moment.
Right.
And you have to do the activities to allow that moment to happen.
Right.
And that's building yourself into someone new. Now, I want to give you a little mentorship here. Just something that I've noticed because I've worked with so many people.
Right.
I feel like there's really two groups of you. Right. And you've got, I've got the younger crew and I've got the older crew. Okay. And I know it's all relative, but I consider myself the older crew.
Right.
Okay. And I've got the younger crew, the ones in their 20s and their 30s. Okay. And they're a bit more comfortable with tech.
Right.
But they struggle with doing this.
Yeah.
With having,
this is true.
With having a conversation. Right.
Yeah.
Now, the older crew, okay, we're really good at having conversations, but we struggle more with tech.
Right.
And the goal is to be somewhere in the middle.
Oh, right.
Okay. So that means that the younger crew is going to have to learn a level of communication skills that they don't currently know.
Right. That's true because they're not used to talking face to face.
They're not used to talking,
and they're not used to making eye contact.
Right. They can barely, they type in code and IRL and, IYK. Okay,
and I've heard people won't even I've had patients tell me that their children can't even order in a restaurant to a waiter.
Right. Yeah. No.
And it's just wow.
I've actually really had to refrain from ordering for my children. And so there's a communication lag that the younger generation is having. But could they learn something really quick on this platform and this platform? Yeah, they can do that.
Yeah.
Okay. For us, we could communicate, but we struggle more with the things that they're more adept at.
Definitely.
So I say that because in order to win today in private practice, really in any level of therapy, I truly believe that you have to be hybrid. You have to have a combination of both. So for you, with your practice, and you have a brick and mortar practice, you have to go online if you're going to, survive.
Yes.
If you are strictly online, like this consulting company is an online company. We have shifted to where we are hybrid and we do in-person retreats. And we used to do, maybe 3 or 4 a year. Now we're doing, 20 to 25 of these a year, right? So the reality is that things change and we have to all adapt, whether you're the young crew or you're the middle crew or you're the older crew.
Very much
and
so.
Anyone that doesn't adapt is going to be
left behind.
Yeah. And so
Absolutely.
Just something I've just noticed. And wherever you stand, just know that you're going to have to grow into something else. And you have done that. And you have done that. Here, before we finish the episode, why don't you tell them about your first ever webinar I'm sure you never
Yeah.
thought you'd do that.
I never thought I'd do a
Yeah,
webinar. Yeah. My first ever webinar, it took me about a month to put it together. And building the slides and developing the talk really wasn't that hard because, again, I'm used to, like I'm teaching patients every day.
Yeah.
This is what's going on.
Yeah.
The harder part was the back end side of it, getting the registration page up and making sure that people, get the link and the back end side of things. That was a little bit harder for me to do. And then actually getting over my stage fright of going on and in front of people and talking about it and doing the tech all at the same time while I'm teaching. And so, it was great. The people that came stayed till the end. So that was a win.
Yeah.
And then I got emails afterwards that they really liked what they learned. I can just take that and run with it and grow from that and keep that momentum going and do more.
Yeah. I think you had, I gave this story, I think this weekend, of one day that I had. It was one of my busiest evaluation days I've ever had in my career. And I think I saw 12 evaluations in one day. Saw 12 evaluations in one day. And I was at the clinic for about 15 hours of doing the documentation and all the other stuff.
Yeah.
And the next day I did a group class, a group presentation, and I had 12 people on. And even when you start, you might have 3 people on a webinar or 7 people on a webinar or 12 people on a webinar or sometimes 0.
Right.
It is so powerful when you can have more than one person. You realize that I've just leveraged myself.
Right.
And so for you doing your first one, you leveraged yourself.
Yeah.
And you were able to affect multiple people at one time. And anyways, well done. Great job. Great job. Great job. All right. Any parting thoughts, comments to entrepreneurs to be something you would tell them? Give them your sage wisdom.
Oh, well, I would just say just do it.
Yeah.
Because there's no time like the present, and it's not going to get any easier.
Right.
Because you're still going to have to learn what to do, and then you're going to have to learn how to do it, and then you're going to have to actually go out and do it. So you might as well just start today.
Yeah.
And get that ball rolling. And the technology is changing quickly, and so it does get easier and easier. And so just don't let fear stand in your way. You have to lean into the fear.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And make it happen.
Love it. Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Till next time, guys.